DOS might be a Mac. So, I'm not just going to do Linux, I'm going to look at Macs. Specifically, I'm using a Mac Mini M4. And I'm going to run Cyberpunk on it. Now, I've run it a couple times. The first time I ran it, okay. Number one, I use crossover for a lot of the games I run. But now I'm finding out that things have changed, even in the last year, where you don't necessarily have to use crossover as much. Crossover is made by a company named CodeWeavers who work on wine. So you're using some type of wine to run Cyberpunk 2077 on a Mac with the PC, but it's not using Proton, it's using, right? So it's a little bit confusing. It feels really clunky. And every time Apple makes a big major, not every time, a couple times Apple made a change and I was using Division 2 and then it was stopped working because, of course. You can see the frame rates are pretty good here. Now, remember, the version I'm playing here is a PC version emulated on Steam to run on Apple Silicon. So it's jumping through a lot of hoops. The Mac Mini, Apple, I would argue, makes some of the best hardware for PCs and laptops and tablets.
I'll tell you soon. We need to get out of here.
And they don't really care about gaming. So why would I buy a Mac? I'd buy a Mac if I was doing, I wouldn't buy a Mac, I'd buy an iPad and I'd use LumaFusion if I was, now of my profession. But if I was making videos, I'd make them on an iPad. An M4, renders fast, M4 and the Mac Mini M4. Done FFmpeg back in the old days on the other channel. I did a different benchmarking on that. And both with the M4 and the iPad 4, they throttle. But anyways, we don't care about that. We care about the software. It's not really a hardware channel. It's an operating system. My number one complaint about the Mac is that they make you do it their way. And so when you get in Linux and you get in something like KDE, you can do whatever you want. On the Mac, all the commands on the title bar are at the top. No matter if you resize the window, they're up there. So there's a lot of times you're going up there. And just how they do things is just, it's a peculiar way. Sometimes when you look at the difference between Android and Apple, it seems like they make some of these differences are arbitrary, right? Like maybe one year I can't press and crop something, and then I can on the other version the next year on the other person's operating system. Can you play games on the Mac? Yes. Are you going to have to jump through some hoops? Yes. Will you have to use the terminal on a Mac? Yes. In general, on all these IX-based Unix, Linux, BSD, X, you're going to have to use the terminal. And so when you come back down to the apps, it doesn't matter if you like Apple's built-in Office apps, you can use Google apps, right? The thing that makes Apple software is usually when it's creative stuff, maybe it's a little bit better. Okay, and all caveats aside, I have an iPhone that I'm recording this on. I have an iPad that I edit the stuff on, and I have an M4. Now, my idea was the M4 was going to be the bridge of the gap where it was going to allow me to more harmonize everything. It's not the case, though. And I can run iPad apps on the Mac, but it's not that good. So here's a look at the kind of the interface. You'll notice at the top left, you'll see the, where I have to do everything. And it's, you can make this in other kind of situations, and the close and open are on the left except for Steam because it's over on the right because, of course, Steam, Apple, or Microsoft kind of stuff. And this is a Commander style file manager because I don't like files or whatever it's called, Finder. So one of the things I want you to think about, people always say, oh, if you're going from Windows and you go to Linux, there's a big learning curve. It's a huge learning curve if you go to a Mac. Here's the difference. The operating system, and to copy and paste stuff and move stuff on a Mac's just like so intuitive. I had to get AI to help me do it because you can't just cut something and then paste it to move it, or you can't use a move command where it does all that together. I had to hit the shift key if I was going to do it and drag it, and it was all different. So now this is just background Apple when they introduced the M4. So what are we going to do? Well, here's what I learned. When you saw the benchmarking or the frame counter on the Apple, it didn't work in Steam. So I've got to work to do that. But what's important is not necessarily the hardware, and if we're getting the frames per second. The point is it's playable. If you're above 30 frames per second, it's okay. If you're a competitive shooter, you want as much as possible. If you're playing MMORPG, 60 is fine. And all these have been fine. It never bothered me to gimp along in my MMORPGs. So there is no other version of macOS. There is no other desktop environment I can put on that. So when you think about, you have these two monoliths. You have Microsoft with how they do things, and you have Apple, how they do their things. And you have Linux, which is open source. And it does it a bunch of different ways. Now, I would contend that if you don't use KDE, you're shooting yourself in the foot. GNOME would be great on a tablet. And I have a tablet PC. But eventually, I took it off and I put KDE back on my tablet PC, my Chewy, because it just worked better. I can make it look like a tablet. I could do whatever I wanted, but I couldn't make it look like a PC when I wanted it to be a PC. And we talked about operating systems. When I first updated the Mac, it just, nothing's showing. I'm updating it, or when I do the update, I don't see the files. I see a progress bar. It's for consumers. Linux is more for tinkers, and now we're moving into a consumer space. So some people in the Linux space want to hide all that, and that's what you get, like a Mint or Ubuntu or a Manjaro. If you even, a lot of that's hidden. Garuda has kind of different tools to do everything. But in reality, you don't want to think about operating system. And one little rant. So I was watching one video about a guy who'd love Run It versus System D for the thing that starts your system and all this stuff. And that's what traditionally Linux was founded, or people use it, were people that cared about that stuff, this esoteric stuff that doesn't matter. I barely care about file systems, right? The great thing about going from Windows 3X, 98X to NT is an NT, you could have long file names. And that's all I cared about, because I could have descriptive file names. It's funny we don't use all that stuff now, but anyways. So there you have it. Got some Mac content for you. Playing Cyberpunk 2077. Benchmark was okay. Maybe at one point I'll give you a better benchmark. Bye, YouTube.